What's happening, everybody? Thank you for being here at All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. I would love it if you do me a favor. If you came here anywhere other than YouTube, I would love it if you go to this link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. You like this video. You want to share it. And if you want, you can also become a member to this channel, which gives you exclusive access to episodes that are only available to members. So a private hang with my buddy Kelly Kigi at his place back in Phoenix. I also interviewed Cy Kernan from The Fix, Midjur from Ultravox. Lots of great conversations to be had only for members. So please become a member. And if not, just subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends. Now, if you're interested in playing guitar or you want to get accessories or anything else, you can take lessons online. I'd love it if you support my sponsors. Go to 5starguitars.com and you'll find that everything you see there is available to you with no sales tax if you order out of Oregon. So they have provided special discounts using the promo code of All Access Live. So when you check out, throw the promo code in there. You're going to save 15% off everything you see. And like I said, there's no sales tax for those of you outside of Oregon. So you're going to save a bunch of dough and you're going to help my amazing sponsor. Now, today's guest, you know him from not only the iconic days from Headbangers Ball and all those sexy videos on MTV, but you also might know him because over the last decade or two, he's become an incredible composer, Grammy nominee for his first classical album, Conversations with Nijinsky, and he's got a fantastic new violin concerto. So we're going to talk all about it with my guest, Kip Winger. Kip, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm going, fantastic. It's good to see you, buddy.
You too.
When you and I were chatting just prior to going live, I talked a little bit about art, and I realized you've got a beautiful painting behind you. Is that special art?
Oh, my mom painted that. She was a painter. Yeah, you said your dad was a painter too, right?
That's right. Yeah.
My mom did a lot of painting in her life and was a poet as well. So, but she's 96 now, still going.
Right on. Very good. Is she in Colorado?
No, she lives in Arizona.
Oh, she does. Okay. Yeah. I knew about your sort of formative days in Denver, so I didn't know if Mom stuck around there. But
no, none of us ended up in Colorado. I was in a band with my two brothers and one other guy named Peter Fletcher. He still lives in Colorado.
Okay.
But, everybody else split. I've got a couple friends there.
Yeah, that's the thing you do from the Midwest, man. I think I told you. Maybe I didn't tell you. I'm from Montana, and some people might think that Montana is the big mecca for rock and roll stardom. Wasn't quite that way, so I need to get out of there. Chase it.
Montana's great, though. I mean, beautiful country.
Good place to be from. Absolutely. Yeah. Not as diverse as I would like, So, I don't know how much time you spent in Montana, but Winger only came through Billings, Montana. That was the only way I got to see you, but I did.
Oh, were you there? Wow.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Bullet Boys, Winger, and Cinderella, man. Of course, I saw that.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I probably have a tour program somewhere from that one, but
wow.
At that point, I was a massive Rod Morgenstein fan, of course, right? So I'm a drummer, and I'd been studying with Rod's professor there. He came through and did master classes, so at least I got a little bit of diverse, education from his professor.
From Rod's professor?
That's right. Yeah, Danny Gottlieb was his teacher. So
oh my God!
Yeah, it was super cool. But we'll have that conversation with Rod when I have him on. But this is about you, man. So
we'll call him up right now.
Yeah, you know what? When we did the first show that you and I did together, I met you at the Dominican Republic. We did that 80s in the Stand thing, and Rod was nowhere to be found. Even though he was on the gig, man, I wasn't seeing him at poolside or hanging at dinner, and so he wasn't the Mr. Social, but I would have loved to have.
The only one that hangs in our band is Paul Taylor. You'll see him everywhere. Like everybody knows Paul.
Reb too, though. Reb was actually very personable, and at breakfast that morning, I remember you guys were having breakfast, and do you remember this? You were a little bit cranky because there was crap internet, and you were like, "Man, I got work to do. I need to get back into this competition."
Yeah, and I had a hand signed Stuart Spector NS2 that was never the same after I came back because the air conditioning down there wasn't working in my room, and it just warped the neck like it's never been the same. But
That's not a souvenir you want to take with you, man.
yeah.
Those rooms, it was so. That's why they switched. He moved to Cancun for a lot of those annual events because the humidity in the rooms were so bad. But people would come home with weird fungus, too. They'd get sick because of the weird fungus in the rooms. But I'm sorry.
It was a weird gig. It was a weird place. Cancun would be cool.
Yeah. Hang on a sec. You got a bunch of fans that are here, but somebody's actually trying to call in. So let me just block them out here. They can't be talking right now. Anyway, so I do see that you got fans in the chat here too. Paul Anthony Moss says he's always loved your album. This conversation seems like a dream.
Thanks, Paul.
They want to know what your favorite track is off that.
Oh my God, that would be very difficult. People ask me what my favorite track is all the time, and I never know what to say because it depends on what mood I would be in, I guess, at the time. And usually I never listen to the stuff that I've done. I rarely go back and listen to any of it, really. I mean, I haven't listened to that album in years. But that was a time in my life when I was trying to do a 180 shift from the winger thing to a solo thing. And I made a bunch of, self-declarations about what declarations and restrictive, rules on how I would go about making my solo record, like no screaming in my singing and, no full-on Marshall guitars. And, I gave myself like certain rules to go by, and it was really, really challenging because the stuff I had done 3 records with Winger before that, and Reb and I have a very specific way that we work. So this was a lot more experimenting, and it took a lot of time to zero in on that exact place that album ended up being. A lot of experimentation, man. It took me a long time to figure that one out. And I didn't even realize I actually had a record until I put all the songs. Back then we were using cassettes and stuff, and I sent them to the guy that helped me mix it, Mike Shipley, and that's when it didn't come together till the very last minute. That's what I want to say. But as far as my favorite songs on there, I don't know. I mean, Monster was always a favorite song of mine. I like the song Here was a cool tune. And I like the first track, Kiss. I'm kind of with this guy, Paul, here. Kiss of Life, Monster.
Kiss of Life, Endless Circles. Yeah, Paul Anthony Moss. Like you've reinvented yourself a couple of times. And one of the things that I really liked about the Rick Beato conversation you had was talking about sort of the phases of your life. And he touched on all the sort of historical stuff. I mean, I knew about your time with Alice Cooper, and I've heard about the reasons for departing. I've got great friends that are in Alice's band now. They've been with him for a long time. And one thing that they were adamant about, or like Alice had been adamant about, was that if you were leaving, he'd always welcome you back, but he wanted to support you in whatever endeavor you had. I think you were with Kane Roberts, right? At the point when you were playing bass. And I knew that Kane just came back and did, a little, he came back to play with Alice when Nita Strauss was splitting. I thought that was kind of a cool reunion. And he had encouraged like Nita to go off and do her thing. My Glenn Sobel's been a buddy of mine for a long, long time. And he talks about the partnership that Alice has in a band. I love the camaraderie. That one sounded like it was a real great family in that gig. And when you and I had just talked,
sometimes I'm sorry to interrupt you. I mean, sometimes I wish I never quit because it was a really good hang.
Sure. Yeah. Well, he mentions, he said, Alice at this point, right? Alice is, he's a little older, but he's so passionate about golf. So they'll drive through the night. He'll get off the bus before a lot of the guys. I think one of the other guys in the band will golf at like 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll hit 18 holes of
Yeah.
golf before most people wake up on the bus. But he's the difference in that band from a lot of other ones is that they all like to be around each other. There's a lot of support. And when you and I were chatting at NAMM, one of the cool things that I thought I remember you talking about was that you had never done a winger gig without Rod. And I mean that kind of loyalty, I mean, as you're a singer, but also a bass player, and the connection you have with, I mean, as a drummer, right? I love the rhythm section. And so I loved the fact that there was that sort of honor amongst you guys with you and Rod. I think it's a beautiful thing. He's
he's amazing. He's like the greatest dude on the planet. I love Rod. I mean, that's the thing about our band. I mean, we're all really good friends. And I always said that I wouldn't do it without Reb either. But one time we had gotten a bunch of gigs booked, and then like Whitesnake moved their tour up or something. I don't really remember what happened, but I actually did do a few gigs without Reb, with a guy named Jake Fawn subbing for Reb. But in general, I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to do any gigs without the original guys.
Sure.
And now we tour with the original guys, so it's great.
You got people in the chat that are talking about seeing you on Friday, just a couple of days, right? You got a gig in was it Michigan?
We're playing somewhere outside of Detroit, and then Johnson City, Tennessee, I think.
Right on.
I need to look at my schedule. I queue this stuff up like the day it happens. So
well, as long as you travel
I never know exactly what I'm doing. Flint, Michigan, and Johnson City, Tennessee. Yeah.
I love the fact that the original members are all still out there. And did I read somewhere that this forthcoming tour, the big tour that you're going to be doing at the end of the year, that's the finale? That's the end of the road tour for Winger?
I'm ending it in different sections of the world, one at a time, because I really want to move to my classical thing and spend most of my time doing that,
Yeah.
And if you do 50 or 60 gigs a year, you're doing a travel day on each end.
Yeah.
And it eats up so much time. I'm very excited to get to spend more time just composing,
Yeah. Well, when we were in the Dominican Republic and you were talking about how you were frustrated because the Wi-Fi wasn't working and you had some compositions that needed to be out, like you've had a deadline, right? Where at that point, I think you were working on Conversations with Nijinsky. It hadn't been released yet. And I think it was just
what do you remember what year that was?
I think it was 2016, I believe. So maybe 2017.
Well, it must have been that. Yeah, it must have been. Well, I put that album out in 15 actually, but I could have been working on that the musical that I did, Get Jack. That was 2 hours of music, and I had a lot of deadlines. I remember that when the Wi-Fi was not working, and I was bumming about that, man.
It's brutal.
That's the problem for me. Like I go on the road and I carry a 3-octave keyboard and all the stuff with an extra screen on my laptop, and I've got all this stuff I'm always carrying around so I can get as much work done as I can in this whole other thing, and then do the Winger thing, which is a sound check and a show and a meet and greet and stuff. So but a lot of the times when everyone else is chilling out, I'm like cranking it,
Yeah. Well, are you how are you with balance? I mean, for me, I have a separate life too. We're traveling with the Flock of Seagulls quite a bit. We're probably doing 80 to 90 shows a year. A lot of those travel days are eating a lot of that time up, but I've got a multimedia web business on the side, and I'm trying to make sure that I've got decent Wi-Fi on planes, or I got a decent hotel room, but a lot of the time I ended up doing most of my work at soundcheck, and it's crazy because it doesn't allow you dedicated focus time with you. Do you kind of have to lock yourself in a room and just like put blinders on and no distractions?
I'm really good at doing that. I've always been very good at focusing on the work at hand and making a list and doing task. That's one thing I've been very good at in my life. too good in some ways, but because and so when I'm on the road, you know, it's pretty easy for me to just, if I set my stuff up, I'll be able to, you know, get some stuff done. But the problem is then you'll get totally into it and, oh my God, I got to go get ready for the show or something like that. And you know, I love performing, and it's not lost on me that we still have opportunities to do great gigs, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm still with the original guys. And so, um, you know, it's been a great honor for me to be with those guys all this time. And
Yeah.
especially now we we've gotten better gigs lately than we had in many years, you know. So it's not lost on me how lucky I am. But the thing is I'm very passionate about the music that I want to leave behind, you
Right.
know. And so every extra amount of time I have, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to write this new piece and how I'm going to get it recorded and, you know, what I'm going to work on. And all of this stuff has just kind of shifted towards this other direction, you know. But it's
You mentioned,
great.
I don't,
It's great to be on stage rocking with the band.
yeah, I mean, good problems to have, right? That better gigs are coming around. I, you touched on a couple of things I wanted, and by the way, guys, you're really active in the chat, so we'll get to some of these questions, and I appreciate you being there with this. You talked about having real focused passion on things you want to see left behind. I talked to a lot of guests about legacy, and
Yeah.
it's important to, at least if it's there's some meaningful elements that we can leave. I feel personally, you know, I just want to leave my environment better than when I got here, right? That's kind of the custodial way. But the pieces of music, you talked to Beato about it being painful sometimes to deliver like the last Winger record, because your focus had been so much, you know, in the compositional piece that it's more effort. And a lot of people that are like massive Winger fans, they might not realize what goes into what you do. You know, they think, well, you know, you show up a gig day in the limo, right? You show up and you do the concert with nothing else going on during the day. You collect a paycheck and, you know, it's a lavish lifestyle. But just the things that you talked about, I mean, sound check and gig and meet and greet, that's a small component, but you got all the travel. You're staying in a hotel room that you're not comfortable or you're familiar with, right? You're eating food that you're not as, you know, you're as familiar with, but there's a lot that goes into making a gig like that happen for the fans. And sure, it's nice to be compensated, but you're trying to deliver a product that's still not only relevant, but kick ass and, you know, giving 100%. So when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, what is it ultimately that Charles Kip Winger wants to be known for?
Oh, just, you know, different phases of my life that I've worked on. I'm not trying to, you know, rewrite history or anything. It's kind of like, you know, I did the rock thing up to a certain point, and then I did my solo thing, and the band has existed, and now I'm going to go into this like third chapter of my life and see what I can you know, kind of bring to the world through whatever the universe is you know, everybody has like a credit card to the universe. You know, you put the chip in, and it's like what's going to come down. You know, it's different for everybody. I'm just trying to keep that channel as open as I can, and that channel happens to be classical. You know,
Yeah.
but when you talk about what goes in, for example, what went in, that little monologue you did was pregnant with a lot of things I need to answer. Um, yeah, there's doing the Winger record the last time. It was a painful experience. I mean, it's a lot of work, and I find writing music is very painful. I mean, for
Yeah.
me it is. I mean, maybe it isn't for everybody. And if you're just writing a fun rock song or something, that can be fine. But kind of my approach, I'm trying to dig into something so deep that it's just not easy. It's not that easy, you know.
Sure.
And when I look at what I've done, um, compared to a lot of other artists, I feel like I'm kind of slow and that I haven't actually done that much compared to a lot of people that have just cranked it out, you know. But for me, it's because, you know, every single tiny little detail is so important. I'll just pour over it and pour over it and pour over it until it's ready to be published. Um, um, and as far as legacy goes, you know, I'm looking on my deathbed, looking back, thinking I want, you know, 5 symphonies, 10 string quartets, a couple operas, you know, this kind of thing. And this shit takes time, you know, and it also takes uninterrupted time,
Right.
you know. So interruption is the death of creativity, man. And so I'm trying to, you know, as life with social media and all this stuff that we do, it just has become like, you think the computer and the internet helps you, but it really has, it's become way more difficult, you know,
Right.
To manage all of this. And so now I've lost my train of thought because there was so many thing, and I'm also looking at all these questions.
Yeah, they've got some great questions out here, and like I said, we'll get those. You know, you talk about the amount of classical pieces that you want to put out, and you know, if Conversation with Nijinsky was your first classical release, it's pretty incredible to me that it did not sound like this is your freshman, you know, product.
Thank you.
And no, really, I mean, like the different movements, like I was a massive Vivaldi fan growing up, and I also used to I rewrote the Four Seasons to be sort of a rock, you know, violin concerto, like just at least adding drums to it. I thought that'd be fun way before like Trans-Siberian Orchestra ever did their,
wow,
you know,
cool.
thing. But when I listened to you, that's pretty much it. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think I thought it added certainly an air of sophistication to the rock and roll vibe, but I liked the complexity of that. And so when I listened to like Adagio, that movement, you know, from your piece,
Yeah.
I thought, okay, you had to have some sync licensing. Were you getting that scored at all with like film or TV?
No,
because it seems like it's perfect. Are you a
yeah.
Hans Zimmer fan?
I like Hans Zimmer. I mean, I think Hans Zimmer's. Listen, there's a huge difference between film composers and concert composers.
Sure.
And some of those guys are extraordinarily skillful, and that's what I was saying earlier. They crank out hours upon hours upon hours of music. I mean, you'll always hear the story about a film composer who's got a team of unknowns that you know, help them do that because they're under a time crunch, which I would, if I was one of those guys, I would do the exact same thing. But Hans Zimmer, yeah, he's got an incredible voice. It's awesome. I've tried to write for film. I don't have the talent to look at the screen and go, oh, it needs this, because that's really what film composing is. I had a very telling medium with Harry Gregson Williams one time, who I think is absolutely phenomenal composer. But he was like, you know, because I was saying, you know, talking about wanting to get into film writing maybe, and he's like, you know, Kip, it's music to order, you know, and it suits me really well, but you need to think about that. And I kind of walked out of there going, wow, that's really interesting, because that's not the kind of artist that I am. You know, I'm kind of this guy who just kind of thinks up this stuff and does it. And I'm not, I at this point in my life, for sure, I'm not really in the mood to try to placate anybody with any of the things that I'm writing, you know. Because what I do, I don't care about the money or any of this kind of stuff. All I care about is the quality of the work, and if it suits this voice inside of me that says, yeah, that's what I hear and who I am, you know. But I'm jealous of the amount of work those guys, they just crank it out, you know, just hours upon hours upon hours. But I'm really, my musical soul is really like a concert composer. I mean, I'm just one of these guys that thinks of, okay, I'm going to write a piece about this. I'm going to write a piece about that. If anybody ever hears it, what are you going to do? And so I don't overtly promote my stuff like I probably should. And I don't solicit it for films, which it's funny that you say that, because in my violin concerto that I'm writing, the third movement would be great in a film.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder who I could get it to try to get it in a film, but I'm not going to go out of my way to try to make it happen. I just delivered my violin concerto. Just today, I got a text from Giancarlo Guerrero, the conductor, saying, "Oh, dude, your violin concerto is on my desk. This is great." Today. And
really, so it's actually everything's mastered and ready to go. It just has not been distributed yet, because May.
Well, no, we haven't. No, this is for the premiere. The performance.
Okay.
Is May 9, and so it's going to be a live recording 2 nights, but so it's not recorded yet. It won't be out until next year, but
can I pimp that really quick?
Say again?
Yeah, can I pimp that really quick? Like, people, if you're watching this and you've got some time, the Nashville Symphony is doing Barber, Winger, and Copeland with the Nashville Symphony. So KIP's Violin Concerto No. 1, May 9th and 10th. You can get tickets. If you actually go to kipwinger.com, there you can see the link that's down at the bottom underneath KIP. Go there. You can buy tickets to the Nashville Symphony, and May 9th and 10th, you can actually purchase tickets to see the live recording, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Two performances, and the soloist is a fellow by the name of Peter Otto, and he's really, really, really good. He's the concertmaster of Nashville Symphony, and he's just been working so hard to get it right. It's not an easy piece, and and I was very intimidated when I started writing this violin concerto, thinking, all the violin concertos that come before you, you'll never live up to any of them.
Sure.
And why should I even do this, basically? But then I realized that I've been working with Reb Beach in the studio all this time, and he's doing this stuff,
Right.
And so, I put some of that stuff in it, and this guy's speak English, bro.
Oh yes. When I said, "Can I pimp your show?" I didn't quite understand that meant promote your show. So that's what the kids see these days. Edgar Winterson.
That's great. And so I feel like a huge something is lifted off of me, because I actually delivered it. Now, getting to the recording and the couple of the rehearsals, it'll just be a total panic again. But I'm already on to my next thing, trying to figure out what I'm going to, how I'm going to write the other new things that I've got going.
Well, let me ask you about that. Like, can you, because now, I mean, the May 9th and 10th, it's written. They're going to perform that night. They're going to record that. That's going to become a live recording. But between now and then, you've got over 2 months. Do you kind of, in your mind, think, oh, you know what? I'd actually rather see this happen, and in your mind rewrite those parts before it even gets produced? No. Once it's done, it's done.
No, I got this commission. They commissioned me for 2 pieces, and they commissioned me 5 years ago. And I started dabbling with the violin concerto, but then they're like, no, we want your symphony first. So I wrote a whole symphony in between. And
wow.
And then I wrote the Winger album in between, and then and on the off time, I've been working on this violin concerto. And finally, in the last couple of years, I've really been hammering on this, and it's been a huge learning curve. My last composition teacher, I would always say, I would say, Richard, I don't have the skill for this. He's like, you'll grow the skill, just take the gig,
Nice.
And I think that's really true for anybody doing anything. Like, if you get a job doing anything that you don't know how, you will grow the skill if you have the right people around you,
Certainly.
And so I've written not a lot of music, but a violin concerto or any concerto is very different, because you're actually collaborating with the person who's going to play it, And that was a huge learning curve. And so, to answer your question, no, I've got it exactly where I want it, And if there's any changes, it will be in rehearsal where maybe I didn't make something loud enough or soft enough or something like that. And that's some nerve-wracking stuff, man, to sit in front of a 70-piece orchestra and they're like, "What do you think?" And also I have really bad tinnitus in my left ear.
Oh, really?
And a lot of my hearing is a little strange, so I'm like trying to find a place in the hall to sit to be able to hear this. I kind of just want to stand up behind the conductor and like check it out.
Yeah.
But I'm out in the hall and it's reverby, and I'm like, it's nerve wracking, man.
When did you
Super
discover
high
the tinnitus?
stakes. Man, I've been standing next to a cymbal my whole life, and one
Right.
day my ears just never stopped ringing. Fortunately, I don't have it in this year, but
Oh,
this year
yeah.
rings in a high E flat, just
Mm.
really loud, But I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't have it. I was talking to Alice Cooper about that. He's
Yeah.
like, and he I'm like, "Do you have tinnitus?" He looked at me like, "What? Like,
Right.
are you even asking me that question?"
Right. Do you breathe air?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we have mutual friends, right? I mentioned Kelly Keegy at the onset. I mean, you and Kelly are pals, right?
Yeah. I love Kelly.
Yeah. Kelly, he's been a dear buddy, and he's struggled a lot with his ears over the years. And one of the things that he'd been working on, I think he's all right with me telling this, is that he's been trying out these in-ears while he's singing that are inflatable. In-ear monitors for the folks that are watching the chat, a monitoring system so that you don't have these massive speakers in front of you blasting you on stage, but they are reference monitors while you sing. So he's got these inflatable that kind of like pump up. You pump them up when you put them in, and he'll have a reference note pumped back in to be able to help with some of that because his over time, and I know that Klaus Meine was the first person that I heard doing this with Scorpions, that he would just get a quick reference note at the beginning of a song or to be able to make sure that he can actually trust, from trust his pitch, because there's a tendency as you get older, sometimes vocalists will start to flatten out. Right. And,
Wow.
Like Mickey Thomas, I had him on the show recently and it was amazing. He still sings the exact same range. No, and
dude, I'm so jealous.
I know it's pretty.
He can drink, he can have a smoke, whatever, and he just walks out and sings it. They don't even tune down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The same key. You mentioned lucky early on, that you were very lucky about a couple things, and I talked to him about luck because he had his share of adversity, right? Back in the early days with oh my God, Fooled Around, Fell in Love. What can I think? His old band. Somebody in the chat will know. Fooled Around and Fell in Love. It's not his original band anyway.
I can't.
Prior to, yeah. It's escaping me. But his drummer. They had this massive rift, and there was a lot of real physical stuff that happened, and it sent him off in the way of Starship. But overcoming all that adversity and coming into where he's at was a lot of his own efforts. And so I bring that up because people that talk about luck would sort of indicate that they didn't do anything to get that. And you mentioned being lucky, right? I mean, I talk about being fortunate, because if you weren't, if you were lucky, man, then you would just happen upon all of the development that you've got and all the opportunities you've had. And I know you've had your ass kicked in a lot of ways, man, early on. And I love your redemption story, man. I think it's really important. People that might not know about your history, we could talk about Winger in particular, right? So like I said, I mean, I saw you guys at the onset, the beginning. I was a massive fan of the band across the board. Winger came at the tail end of that Headbangers Ball era, just prior to the grunge scene coming out, right? So where Winger would have hit its peak musically, or at least in terms of commercial success, bands like Nirvana came along and just kind of uprooted that, right? So the gigs were massive arena gigs, ended up kind of going away, and reinvent yourself, right?
And then there was all the others, the whole Beavis and Butthead and all that stuff. So I was like the scene of the crime, and a lot of people don't know, like I lost all my deals, like record deal, publishing, everything, and it was, it all just kind of went away. And I was one year I was playing to 10,000, and the next year I was playing to 5 people in a Borders bookstore. Actually, it wasn't the next year; it was a few years later, because it just took a long time to bring that all back. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Man, I of course, everybody has adversity, but you also had to deal with a really tragic loss, man,
Yeah,
Beatrice.
exactly.
And I one of my guests and somebody that I admire a lot, another bass player, Rudy Sarzo, was on the show, and we talked a lot about loss. Right? He
Yeah,
was on the bus when Randy Rhoads, like crashed, and he lost Randy, and he lost Ronnie James Dio while he was playing with them. He lost Kevin
yeah,
DuBrow and Frankie Benali, and
yeah.
we talked a lot about how you maintain passion, you maintain sort of your verve for life, and you've done a lot of reinvention, for Kip Winger, man. But how do you deal with grief?
I use it as a cathartic process to compose music. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, I channel it all into my music, and I think people can hear that. I mean, I think that's what people are drawn to in my own work, not necessarily the band. I do that too with the band, but in my own work, it's all there. You can hear it all, and I blatantly address it in some of it, but
The song
most
Simulation
of,
Floor, that was a big,
yeah, and
yeah,
most of the stuff that I do is is really centered around an emotional point of view. I mean, um, the reason I'm interested in understanding musical shapes and forms is to describe these feelings that we have to go through, and I've had quite a bit of, I would say, extraordinarily highs and ups and downs that are unusual,
yeah,
you know, and so I've used music to heal myself, and then sometimes I get a lot of really nice. Well, I used to get letters, and now you get comments from people about how this stuff has helped them in the same way that was helping me when I was writing it. So
yeah,
that's really very rewarding to know that you put something out there and actually is healing somebody. You know,
yeah. I
that's
mean,
kind of that's cool.
there, when people are going through the struggles, and music has been that catharsis for a lot of people too, right? Fans and people that appreciate the music. If you've written something to help them get through those parts in their life, I see all these people in the chat, and a lot of it
Yeah,
has been very impactful to these people that have appreciated like all elements of your music. In fact, I hadn't even scrolled all the way down here, but like Rhonda Fink says, she loved. I feel your feelings. One of the
yeah,
things that it's it's rare, I think, for somebody in a public eye in the position that you're in to communicate feelings, right? And
yeah,
like as men too, right? It's stereotypical, but it's rare for men to kind of voice their feelings. You can hide behind, sort of uh, like I would imagine maybe singing or like songwriting helps. Maybe you can still be vulnerable in your writing, but you don't
yeah,
have to be overtly right in front of people's face, right? Dealing with um, those feelings. But I see that my son is chatting. He's coming back from Colombia right now, and he and I have talked about this a lot about the importance. I tell him it's absolutely important for people to share where they're at. Like there's the right now the world is like chaotic and upside down, and as in America it's crazy and upside down, and the tendency is to sort of lash out at those things that aren't like us, and to find fault in everybody else, and not just be introspective and look at, okay, what can I do for
yeah,
myself today,
yeah,
to better myself. And I've heard you talk about starting your day with the gym. That's the way that you clear the cobwebs. Is that still a ritual for you?
yeah, yeah. It is. I mean, walking fast on a treadmill for sure. That really. I mean, I can't do my day unless I do. Sometimes I take a day off, but
Yeah.
mostly for the last 5 years, I've just been hitting that really hard. working out and you know, I'm not like Kane. I mean, Kane
Yeah.
Roberts.
Right.
I really
Right.
got into actually, you know, Kane was a great influence on me because I really kind of got into it back then. And I, you know, when I in the interim, some I lost the plot along the way, but you know, I'm really into that now, and I do a lot of diet research and trying to figure out what works for my body and stuff because aging is difficult, man. You know,
God. About
and
it.
so um, you know, I was just saying to my friend earlier today I was saying, man, if I was 40, it would be great because I've got so many great ideas. And then I had the energy, you know, but now I got to
Right.
really pick my battles. Um, but I'm really super health conscious. I haven't had a drink since 2012, man, you know, so
Same.
I gave it all up and I'm all about trying my best.
Yeah.
I don't always do my best, but I try my best to choose all the right food and you know all that shit because
Okay. Listen.
you know it affects everything about your being and everything about how you feel. Most uh, the biggest thing about it for me is like self-loathing. You know, if you pig out for too long, it's just I can't stand the self-hatred that happens when I'm just too far down that tunnel,
Oh
you
my
know. So
God,
I'm
man.
trying to stay, you know, it's very zen. I work better with rules, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Do you
very
have a
I'm very
trainer?
no. I
Okay.
just do it. I'm a research fanatic about it. And I do a lot of rules. I have very definite goals and I give myself tasks. I do a lot of intermittent fasting, you know, that kind of
Oh, you
shit.
do.
Yeah,
Man,
tons.
you know, my son is big time on the intermittent fasting thing right now, and he moved to Thailand about 10 months ago and went through this, not only the intermittent fasting, but he recognized that the food he ate there was so different. He went, you know, a lot of water, a lot of protein, and that was it. Lost 60 pounds, and he was not heavy, man. He just everything came off, and he's
Yeah.
also 25, so it's a little easier when you're 25. But I realized that a lot of what we got in our food. I mean, you talked about doing a lot of diet research, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how much junk is in just even not even just like fast food, but just in general, right? You go to the store, and if you're not getting,
It's totally true. It's totally
yeah,
true. I mean, you got to really read the label. I mean, but I mean, you know, actually the bottom line is like if you eat like the Greeks, you'll be fine. I mean,
right,
but you know, in Europe, it's a whole different scene. Like I've been lucky to travel all over the world, and I'm firsthand witness to if I eat a croissant in Paris or one over here, only the one in Paris is not going to mess up my stomach. So what I don't know,
right,
you know, so you tell me, you know.
yeah, man.
Man, dude, I could go down this rabbit hole forever.
You know
But
what? I bet a lot of people here could relate too, man. People in the chat, they
yeah,
probably understand.
it's really tough because you know the older you get, you're looking in the mirror going, "Dad, what are you doing here?" You know, and uh,
You've
and
done
it's
well,
hard.
man.
Yeah,
You've done
thanks.
well. I mean,
You
I've
too.
had a
You too.
well, buddy. Honestly, man, uh, the self-loathing thing is horrible, and I was glad to see my kid make this massive change because it affected what I put in my body too. Watching
Yeah,
him, you
yeah.
learn a lot from, you know, but um, the
Kevin,
and
stay
yeah,
there. I'll be right back. Okay, I
yeah,
gotta get
yeah,
some.
yeah. No sweat. I'm going to pull you on. So while he jumps off really quick, guys, I'm going to have you do me a favor. A lot of you came in after Kip started, so I want you to do me a favor. Go to this link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. If you're not subscribed yet, do it because I have over 350 amazing other episodes that I've got great guests from the past. A lot of them that you've already known and some that you might discover. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Pacific, I've got an amazing new band from the Pacific Northwest called The Exquisite Taste of Plain Water. But you can go back and you can look at amazing episodes. I did the last interview with Tawny Katane before she passed away. I had rockers like Rudy Sarzo. I've had amazing actors like Robert Romanes from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. all the rockers you want, all the actors you want from the 80s, and a lot of amazing visionaries. So go back, check it, subscribe to this channel. You can go back through and look at the archives, and I would love it if you reach out. And if I can, when Kip comes back here in a second, I'm going to address some of the questions you have. So let me go through the chat. I saw a lot of you guys had seen him recently, so we can talk about the recent shows. And a bunch of you also are going to the Nashville recording. So he's got a brand new live recording with the Nashville Symphony, May 9th and 10th. If you go to kipwinger.com, you can see a link to those tickets. And he's back here. So I was just telling people about the recording and tickets. Oh, good man, got to load it up. Water's a key thing, right? Got to drink a lot of water, man.
Yeah, I drink a lot of water. I feel bad. There's so many nice people over here doing comments.
Let's address a couple of those here real quick. One of the people
sorry to interrupt you. I've seen a bunch of comments asking if we're going to release the Pull anniversary show, and I don't know. Actually, we recorded that, and I have yet to go through the files to see if they're, decent. That was a fun show, and that was the most terrifying show I've ever done in my entire life.
Why?
Because that album is next to impossible to sing.
Yeah.
Especially playing and singing it. And there was, we brought my brother Paul in to help us out. So it was 6 people on stage. And I think the concert went really well. But I haven't seen, I haven't had a chance to go in and look at the audio files yet. So there's the answer. If I think the audio files are good enough to mix, I'll put it out.
Right on. The thing is, people that maybe have missed this early on, Kip he's a workaholic and he's a perfectionist. So if it's not perfect, it's not going to go out. And if there's work to be done, it's going to take a long time because you're going to be meticulous about making sure that the right pieces get put in. Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, although with a live album, I want to keep it live. I don't want to go in and fix a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And there was a couple other questions in here. Oh, Blackwood Creek. Love Blackwood Creek. I was totally into Blackwood Creek. I really love that album. It was a long time coming because it was my childhood band with my, brothers. Actually, my older brother was in it too, but we did that 3-piece because when I was young, my oldest brother went to live with my dad, and it was me, my middle brother Nate, and Peter Fletcher, the guy I mentioned earlier, who still lives in Colorado. And we made that album, and but my brother passed away in 2019, so nothing's going to be happening there. But one person in this chat said he loves Nothing But the Sun. Man, I love that song, and it's Rod's favorite song.
Is it?
And yeah, we were actually thinking about doing it with Winger, but it's difficult to get the band to rally these days. Now I'm changing the subject because we're going to Japan and Australia, and we're doing Italy at the Frontiers Festival and stuff. And I'm like, dudes, we got to do some new songs. We've been playing the same stuff for a while. I'm trying to change it up. So I sent him a few songs to learn. And, it's like, come on, we got to learn some new songs,
Yeah, well, and especially if this is truly, you're going out on a bang, right? You're going out with a bang, and you're going to make these buckets of places the last stop for Winger. You probably want to get all of that, get all of your rocks out in these places. Is there something that just lights you up when you're playing? Is there like a song that just, okay, before you answer that, I've talked to a lot of musicians about this. I chase this, on a nightly basis, man, that elusive euphoria that every once in a while, man, there's a synergy between the guys in the band and the crowd where, it couldn't tell you why, there's something in the air, there's something in the water that night where everything clicks, all sound sort of disappears. And there's just this crazy, the hair on your arms will stand up, and it doesn't happen very often for me, man. But is there a song that does that for you that just lights you up?
Well, that's a 2-pronged question because my band, we've been together for so long, like we can make that happen pretty good. Like if the audience is on fire,
Look
What
at
happened?
that. You snapped your fingers and it's got that was awesome.
How did
Yeah,
that happen?
nice. You know what? You just made it happen, baby.
Wow,
I love it.
that's amazing.
I
We,
didn't know that would
anyway, so like that'll just happen out of nowhere sometimes because we're just, so in the zone a lot because we've been doing this together for so long. My favorite song to do on stage, without question, is this song off Better Days Coming called Midnight Driver of a Love Machine. That's my favorite song to perform. I mean,
love it.
I always feel like a rock star on that song. And
Yeah.
it's no matter what. I actually put that back, told those guys to freshen up on that because I want to put it back in the set. A lot of times I'm sitting there going, oh God, my strap's bugging me and I can't sing this
Right.
note and I'm freaking out. And, I've developed a couple weird tics with certain songs where one note's freaking me out so bad. By the time I get there, I'm so freaked out I can't sing it anyway.
Really?
Yeah,
Just
sure. There's
is it because of the position of where you're like where the note is in your throat or is it
I
just
think
height?
it. I
Having,
think no. I can sing the high stuff, no problem.
yeah.
For me, it's the lower stuff now because I've just been, you know. I mean, I warm up. I do proper singing. I even taught voice for a long time. I mean, I
Right.
studied with this bad dude, man. He was a great vocal teacher since I was 20. But doing this for so long, I mean, if unless you're Mickey Thomas, I mean, the stuff
Right.
starts to go. Look at Bon Jovi, man.
Oh, that's tough, man.
It's
A
very
lot of guys.
sad. It's very sad
Yeah.
because Bon Jovi's he's a great performer. He could be out just crushing it, but sometimes the body just says, "Sorry, that's not what's going to go on here," and so it's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's a whole other. That's the subplot to my wanting to. I'm always terrified on stage nowadays. I mean,
Really?
I never was before. I'm just like, let's do this. I don't have
Yeah.
stage fright. Like, dude,
Right.
I'll stand up there and no problem going on stage. But worrying
Yeah.
about because I don't want to suck. I want to give people what they came for. I want to sing the stuff the way I did it on the record, and for the most part, I do that. But there's a
Yeah.
couple tiny little places in the shows where it's like, whoa.
Can I tell you how impressive it is to hear you say that though, that you want to give that much? Because we all know a lot of musicians that will just mail it in for the paycheck, man. They'll collect and they'll go out there. As long as the people will still come to a show, they'll just give a lackluster performance just because people are there in the audience, man. I love the fact that you want it to be good for them. That's
Oh
great.
yeah. No, because we're all in it together. That is the very essence of That's the very essence of live performance of
Yeah.
anything. The audience comes to be the musician. It's kind of like it's this simpatico, and if you don't have that, there's no reason to be there.
Yeah.
None.
Oh, well, I mean, I there is, I understand too musicians that this has been their life career, right? They didn't have anything else to fall back on, right? They're not going to go write a violin concerto, or they're not going to have a web career or whatever. So they're not going to flip burgers, so if they can still go out and, get a few people to show up at their show, then they'll, I think, take it for granted and take advantage of that. But I love the fact that you're not doing that.
No, I could never do that. But my problem is well, there's a subplot to this is that a lot of people need the recognition. They need that buzz when they go on stage and for people to go, whoa,
Yeah.
I don't need that. I mean, I tell this to a lot of people all the time. Like, I don't feel like I actually ever made it. I'm always trying to, in my own mind, go, okay, what's the next way I can do this better? And I don't think of myself as I don't think of myself as a famous like rock star whatsoever. I mean, I've been well known since I was 24, but that's not my self-image,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that still do this way past their expiry date because that's how they identify with themselves. The only
Sure.
thing I identify with is the music itself. Like, what's that note doing? And that's just who I am. I mean, because
Yeah.
I recognize, listen, there's so much music I could play you right now that's so much better than I'll ever be. There's always a North Star, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
I,
okay, I could play you anything that I've written, and somebody go, "Oh my God, that's awesome," and I'd be like, "Yeah, but look at that," you know.
where does that come from? That's, I mean, really, because one thing about what I hear you say, you're not necessarily self-deprecating, I think, but you definitely, you can, because we all know our own flaws, right?
Yeah,
But you, if objectively, right, I look at the Kip Winger of Headbangers Ball 17.
yeah.
You came out and just, man, you were the sex symbol of the time. And, like every guy wanted to be you, every girl wanted you. Right. And so that easily could have gone to someone's head, but obviously it hasn't. You've maintained some humility. Where is that from?
Oh, it came. I think it came mostly from the fact that I'd been doing it since I was like, well, I got my first gig paid for money when I was 8 years old, and I was with my, brothers, and we played gig after gig after gig. And so people don't know that by the time I actually got a record deal, I felt like it was a bit of almost too late for me,
Really?
So yeah, totally. And when
At 24?
No, I was 27 when I got a record deal, and
Okay.
I was 28 when our first record came out. And I mean,
Okay.
here's Duran, they were 19 when they were the biggest thing in the world. And so
Right.
I was in the mentality of like, Jesus Christ, maybe I'm too old and this is going to pass me by, And then when it started to happen, I thought this could go away like that, And so I never actually stepped into the suit and believed it that much. I only believed in the music I was creating. Now, mind you, don't get me wrong. I mean, I had a blast. It was really great. And when I did finally make it, I sent platinum albums to everybody, who didn't believe that I'd get anywhere. And
Awesome.
all my, all that.
Hold on. Who was that first one? Who got that one?
Well, I should rephrase, but I sent platinum records to, like, I don't want to pull out any names here.
That's all right. I did it to my music teacher. I had a high school music teacher.
But the good ones I did was like, my parents for vindicating because I dropped out of like, oh my God, Kip's never going to make it anywhere. Oh my God, what are we going to do? He's dropped out of high school. Jesus Christ. Like, what's he going to do? And so all those people I sent, aunts and uncles and stuff like that. But, for the most part, I would say that my aunts and uncles were very supportive of me. It's just that when I dropped out of high school, everybody was flipping out,
Sure. What did mom and dad want you to be?
Well, my mom and see, this is the thing, my mom and dad were really, my dad especially was like, okay, if you want to drop out of school, write me a letter, think about it for 6 months, and then write me an essay on why you want to do it. That's how that happened. And so I was very clear about it. And he said, okay.
You did it.
And he said, go for it. And I did it.
You did that?
Oh yeah, totally. And
so
I don't think I've ever told that story in public, actually. Yeah, and so I wrote a big essay on why I wanted to do it. And so my dad was theology doctorate and theology and philosophy. On his side of the family are brilliant thinkers. His sister was a dean of arts and sciences at DU and professor in opera, and I studied voice with her, and she turned me on to my new teacher. And so I sent her a platinum record, and she was freaking out when I quit high school, and my mom was really freaking out. She was calling my dad, going, "What are you gonna? Why are you letting him do this?" And so I vindicated my dad by actually getting somewhere, and then sent my mom a platinum record, like, hey, and she's. My mom was very proud, of course, but she was not endorsing me dropping out of high school. They weren't together, by the way.
Okay.
Yes. But back to the original question, I was always thinking, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Because this could all go away really quick. But what's the next thing musically? You know, I was a complete idiot when it came to what's the merch going to look like.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I didn't get any of that, you know. And the videos were like, okay, what's Whitesnake doing? What's Cinderella doing? Let's do that. Because I was, you know, I studied ballet. I was like, at 16, I was listening to Stravinsky going, oh my God. There was a comment in here, Stravinsky or Ravel, by Rob McLean. For me, Ravel, because Ravel is the greatest composer, orchestrator for me of all time. Stravinsky, his mind was unparalleled on many, many levels. But his music doesn't touch me or move me as much as Ravel. And I would actually challenge anyone to say that Stravinsky's music touched them more than Ravel. So I'd have to go with Ravel. Stravinsky's is a mind-blowingly cerebral on many levels, and beautiful and very emotional too, but not
Rite of Spring. The person that asked that, Rob McLean, was my old bassist from a band back in the high school days and college days in Montana.
Oh,
And
cool.
he's one of those guys like you. He has completely reinvented himself, moved to Minneapolis, and is back in school now, actually going to college, studying art. But we've had that conversation that the importance of putting value on those things that you're passionate about, no matter what part of your life. Do you mind if I ask, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Okay, that you know of. I know, but that's the joke.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, that's, because for me, my boys are in their 20s, and I talk about, all I want them to do is be passionate about something, right? I just and to sort of seek those things that you can find joy in, be passionate about, and I feel like, the old adage of, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? It's key, man. Don't get stuck in a dead end job and just feel like life has passed you by because you don't love what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I should say I have a stepson that I raised from about 11 to 18, and we're really good friends. And I tried to kind of give him my philosophies on that stuff. But what I found a lot of times with certain people, I mean, you kind of just let them have to do their thing, and if they ask, I'll tell. But I never forced any of my concepts or any of that kind of stuff on anybody, because some people get it and some you never know. But
I will say, as a dad, man, they stop doing what you say, but they do watch what you do and looking at what you're doing. I mean, the fact that you are almost obsessive in the way that you go after what inspires you, and if they can watch that, that's a great influence, whether it's your stepson or whether it's a contemporary or a bandmate, a winger bandmate that sees that you're so passionate about writing a violin concerto. They're not going to sit back and watch Fox News all day and have McDonald's, right? They're going to be like, hopefully inspired to do better themselves.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I really like teaching, and I like these kinds of conversations about humanity. I dig this. I dig having these conversations about what it's like to be a human being.
Amen.
And my dad was great about that kind of stuff, because his philosophical leanings was super influential for me. And I more than a lot of people that I know have a really extreme work ethic. But the reason I have that is because I realize that consistency really is the key to all of this stuff. It's like, if you do just a tiny little bit every single day, you won't notice it, but 2 years from now, you'll be a lot better at something.
Yeah, for sure, man. The chat is still
Rob is Kip is like Ravel in the really like takes time and is perfectionist.
Yeah,
you have no idea. Like, you could Google Ravel's house, where he lived the most of the end of his life, and you'll see this really weird little house, and there's all this cool wallpaper on the house. And we went to the house at one point, and the woman that was giving us the tour told us he painted all of that
Oh
wallpaper on
my
on
God.
his
That's,
wall. So,
oh, I,
so
and I completely missed. There's a ton of people on Instagram. So, guys, if you're watching this on Instagram, I missed your chats. I apologize, guys, because we don't see those here. These are all the YouTube chats. But the Jody Wasinski here in the chat has been, yes, Wisneski. She's been asking a lot of great questions. One of the things she asked is, are there any female singers that you would record with if given the opportunity? Do you have any collabs that you would like to work with?
as a singer, like me sing
Yeah.
and they sing,
Yeah. Duets.
not so much.
Okay.
I'm writing for a singer right now. I'm doing an arrangement for an opera singer named Hila Plitman, who's a very well known opera singer. So I'm really interested in writing for the voice.
Oh,
When I
really?
wrote, oh yeah, like when I wrote that musical Get Jack, it was really the best place for me because I could put all my rock chops and all my orchestra chops all in one place. The problem is I don't really like musicals, They're just too
Yeah.
happy. They're too happy for me. So if I could write 10 Sweeney Todds, I'd be into it, But I do like working with other people's voice because I know how to write a melody
Yeah.
and I know how to write a song. And so then I know how to orchestrate and make the music interesting. So this is why I want to like write opera and more operas and musicals because of that exact fact. Because I know I know that I can make a musician enjoy what they're doing, which
Yeah.
makes all the difference in the world. I have a lot of trouble with my voice now. It's like getting a Model T up and running, and I still can sing all the stuff that I do, especially if I just warm up for long enough, and I can really get it going, and I can sing the shit out of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very traumatic. It's not like it used to be. It's really it's very intense to get my voice up and running and doing that kind of singing. It's like glorified screaming. So
Well, yeah.
uh,
I've heard you even just like on the Beato thing, you talk about where that range is, where you do the high screams and
yeah,
it's kind of like a head
yeah,
voice, but there's a
yeah,
rasp right there.
yeah.
Is that over time? Is that something that you've just
I
sort of,
worked. No, man, I worked on that. I worked on it
yeah.
because my voice was real clean
Oh, really?
in the early days, and I really had to work on that. And and you know what, I've often thought I should be on the internet going, okay, here's what I did with my singing, and maybe you can
Yeah.
try. But there's so many singing teachers on Instagram now, and it's like nobody needs to hear from me about it. But
Well, the difference is, Kip, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but you got the pedigree, right? So somebody might, go and study with somebody that because they have the range, but the fact that, you're such an accomplished artist, they're more likely, because you've got the pedigree. So I'm
I
just saying,
appreciate that. Well, I mean, I do watch some of these guys on Instagram thinking you could never sing three in a row for
right.
you know what I mean, like for
Yeah.
6 months straight doing what I do. Like, no way. I don't care what you're on here trying to go, here's how you sing with a rasp and this
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And here's how you sing like this guy and that guy. And I'm like, bro, try this live and get up there and do it for an hour and a half, three
Right.
nights in a row.
Miles Kennedy?
Well, of course I know who he is. I'm not friends with him. Great.
Okay. Miles and I we've known each other for about 30 years. I'm going to go see him play in Seattle on Thursday.
It's
And
amazing.
he's incredible. So his old band, the Mayfield Four, amazing band. They were signing record deals, and at that point, it was just this, Three Musketeers, all for one for all band. But then he goes off and he starts singing for Slash, and he goes off and he's singing for Alter Bridge, right? And then he's got a solo career. So when when all this was happening, you'd see him during the day, and he wouldn't talk. He would just whisper all the time because there's no way he had the facility to be able to go off, because he's at one point he'd be doing an Alter Bridge show and fly to a Slash gig and then come back for an Alter Bridge show and then off to his solo thing, and there's got to be at some point, unless the dice are rolled properly, man, where he's
God
not,
bless him.
Yeah, right. And he's still fairly young, and hopefully, like you and Mickey Thomas, he can hang on to that, but he does have a lot of clean living, right? He's not a drinker. He eats really, really well. And I think there's a key, right, to that.
I think so. I personally think so, because I know a lot of singers that have just indulged way too much and continue to do so, and they just can't. Right. It's embarrassing. I mean,
it's come on. At some point, time to grow up, man. I'm with you. Like you mentioned, 2012 was the last drink. Was there a pivotal point? Was there a turning point for you?
My voice. It was affecting my voice. I was like, I can't do that. I had a few blackout times, and I was like, oh geez, I don't remember what I did last night. Nashville tends. Like, I came to Nashville 22 years ago when it was not what it is now. It was really a countrified, meat and three, no great restaurants, and I became a heavy drinker when I came here. It was like, you drive drunk and wear it like a badge.
Right. That's the rite of passage. Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I ain't doing that. And I just was like, see ya, like goodbye. And I just put it down one day and never looked back.
That's it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You were going to respond to somebody's chat there?
Well, yeah, but you were right in the middle of something. Go ahead.
Well, what I was just going to say, because you talked about having this concern for your voice, making sure that you do what you can in terms of health, but you want to focus on both the compositional stuff and your writing. When you've done so much with the acoustic shows and you did your solo shows, I love that Rick Beato knew you well enough to know the other side of KIP, and he talked about your dedication to guitar. And man, I don't even know if you've got it anywhere near, but I was floored when you pulled out your 12 string and you just started vamping. I know you're an accomplished player, but it sounded so rich, man. You don't have a guitar anywhere handy.
I don't, and I need my nails, And
that's right.
Well, and I was, the thing about Rick's show, I was sick that day, and after I did the show, I was texting Rick like, dude, you can't put that. I sounded terrible on that, like my voice, because. To be totally honest, I could have done a lot better. He's going, no, it's cool, man. Let me hit it and just send it to you. And he sent it to me. I'm like, okay, that's cool. He did a great job. I was panicked because I was really getting over something terrible. But I studied classical guitar for about 5 years, where I was one of those 5 hours a day guys, just playing Spanish music and stuff like that. And I learned how to do all that. And when I tried to develop my solo show, I played like that. And I just developed this weird thing with the 12 string. That's the other thing about Rick's show, is like, I didn't have my real guitar that I usually play my shows with that really sounds like a weird Indian sitar thing. It's got a real thing. Anybody that's seen my solo shows knows. But it doesn't have a hole in it, so you can't really play acoustic.
Sure.
And so, but I all that stuff, I developed that stuff over. When I did my first record, the only show tour I could get was like a Borders bookstore tour.
Right.
And I went 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and I played 4 or 5 songs to promote my solo album. There's like 10 people in the audience.
Oh.
But those 10 people were like, hey man, play Blind Revolution Mad, play How Far Will We Go? And that's how I developed it over a lot of time. And then I started doing some of those shows, and I'm like, fuck, I'm out of songs. What do I play now? And I just started developing that over a long period of time. And then this dude, Ben Hands, came and said, hey man, I got my djembe. You want me to play? I was like, okay, play a song, and it all just happened very organic. And then he started doing gigs with me. But the guy who played percussion on my solo stuff's Robbie Rothschild's like, he studied in Africa. I got all this percussion on my solo records, and that's where that all came from. So Robbie and I will go out and do that kind of thing. And it's a really, really fun gig, but now it's terrifying to be able to sing it. There's nothing more terrifying to be on stage and you can't hit the notes. It's just it's very uncomfortable. It's like, it's really like the very weird, uncomfortable dude that walks in the party and everybody's like, whoa, what do we say? You know?
Right.
And I
Well,
just
especially
really,
if you're doing like acoustic or solo shows, right? I mean,
yeah,
you can't hide behind the power of band and
yeah, yeah.
oh,
I've had the highest of high experiences doing my solo shows that have just been fantastic. And the audience has really been, it's a beautiful thing. Like I say, I don't know how many more I'm going to do because I've moved on and I'm very afraid of it, to be honest with you. I mean,
I I love your vulnerability, man. You know, it's for somebody to admit that they're terrified of anything is awesome, right? Because there's a lot of false bravado out there, guys that are just, you know, unwilling to admit that something might scare them, but you've taken a lot of risks, you know,
yeah.
a lot in your life.
One thing I will say where I feel, I said earlier that I don't feel like I've ever made it. I do know though that I'm a platinum artist. I've 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 sold out 10,000 arena. You know,
Yeah.
I've headlining, and I've also fallen to the very bottom, and I've done the very bottom, and I've also gotten a Grammy nomination for classical composition, and I've had a great symphonies play my music all over the world, by the way. And so there is a certain level of confidence that comes with that, where I can just say, I am terrified, you know, instead of trying to put up some kind of a thing going, not wanting to tell you that, having never had any accomplishments. You know, the accomplishments definitely help me sit here and tell you, yeah, I mean, you know, this has been great. I'm terrified of this. I feel confident about that. You know, I don't feel like I'm any different than any other human being. That's the thing. It's like there's no entitlement that comes with the kind of success that I've had. It's just that I work my balls off, you know, and I just refuse to stop, you know, with this vision, with the vision that I have, you know. So that's where it comes from. And I've also, you know, one thing maybe I said this on that interview with Rick. I mean, I've always sought out mentors. That's always been my biggest theory in life, because my dad handed me Think and Grow Rich when I was 15 by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
And it's all about finding somebody who's better than you at what you want to do. And I've held steadfast to that my whole life. Where's the guy that kicks my ass? Let's go find him and go, what are you doing that I'm not doing? Tell me what you're doing, because I want to model myself after you. And the thing is if you model yourself after someone else, you'll never be them, because you're not them.
Right.
You know? So you can go, wow, I want to sound like Debussy. So study a Debussy score, mimic the music, try to do something that sounds like him. You won't, but you will usurp the essence of what he was doing in there, you know. Sure. And that's kind of been my whole you know, kind of way of life, you know. Right now I've got a friend of mine in Europe who's a great conductor, and I met him when I was teaching at a classical convention in Sofia, Bulgaria. It's this great dude named Hermann Gnussen from he's from Holland. And where's Amsterdam? Oh my God, I'm having a brain. Netherlands. I'm sorry, he's from the Netherlands. Yep. And he's like, Kip, you should conduct. And I'm like, no fucking way could I conduct. I have revered conductors. I'm in awe of conductors, and there's so much goes into it. I'm like, Harmon, I could never allow myself to even think that I could do that, because it's a whole lifetime of things. So no. Imagine you're conducting your own music. You have to do this. And so I'm actually thinking, God, should I try to conduct? Like, that's just bizarre. Like, I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm terrified. Like, okay, I can't stand up on the podium. I don't know all the Italian words. Like, I know how to write the music.
Yeah.
And I can look up the words and put them in the score. But if the second oboist challenged me on something, hey man, what am I doing here? Like, I might just have a brain seizure and have to kill myself on the podium, you know. But my point about this is this never ends if you don't
Yeah.
let it, you know. I could be walking around with a cane going, oh, my back hurts so bad. You know, I'm 63. Let's go, you know what I mean? Like, screw that, man. You are going to have to kill me to get rid of me, man.
I love it, man. Do you take time off? I mean, I know you're working all the time. Do you take time off and go like see a movie or anything?
Not a movie, but it's fun to go to really, I like to go to good restaurants and find,
Oh, yeah.
good things like, I mean, I do and I don't. I mean, sometimes I'll go visit things on the road or stuff like that. But when I'm working, that is, I really get nourishment from working. So
Yeah.
you could call me a workaholic, but really it's like a life pathaholic.
Sure. Well,
You
I
know?
like, taking time off helps you sort of recharge that because there's so much creativity that goes into what you do in your composition. If you go off and you do some mindless entertainment for a bit, does it help you come back and, just kind of
That's a great question. I need that, and I'm trying to think of what would give me that. There's so many distractions nowadays, and I very few things give me that. A long walk. I like to take long walks. That's a big one. And I don't get enough nature. I'd be really into it if I was closer to like nature that I love. I'm a Westerner, right? So I
Yeah.
did the West.
Yeah.
So are you. So that
Ah,
kind of nature, like Colorado and that, I lived in Santa Fe for a while. That was great. And I loved it.
buddy, let me tell you,
Yeah.
10,000 Waves. I was living
Incredible.
right across the road from 10,000 Waves. I was in a casita right there. My daily walk was up that mountain above, overlooking that valley, and that
Unreal.
I couldn't believe it, man. It was one of the most magical times of my life. I mean, where I'm at in Portland, amazing. I've been in Vancouver, BC since November, almost exclusively. I love it up there, and I'm out any day we're not on the road, man. I've got a little pug, and my dog and I are out in the woods.
Oh, yeah,
I
cool.
have to do that to center my head. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I asked about movies the other night. One thing that drives me crazy, man, is seeing a shitty movie. I feel like I wasted not only 2 hours of my time, but I get angry because I'm like, what I could have done with that time, right? But let me tell you, the most fulfilling was the new Zeppelin documentary for me.
Was
There
the
was
what?
the brand new Led Zeppelin documentary that just
Oh,
came out.
I was just thinking I got to watch that. Yeah.
It's amazing, man. And see it in the theater. It was only doing IMAX for like 4-day release, and now it's just in standard, but they remastered the audio, which is incredible. But there, as a composer and as a businessman and a front man that you are, you will be blown away. At least for me, there was stuff I didn't know, man. And
Oh, yeah. No, I'm totally into
watching
it.
Page's position in that band where it's us, because you talked about how there was your role in like picking videos, and you said I was doing what Cinderella was doing or what Bon Jovi was doing or whatever.
Yeah.
He was so calculated. Jimmy Page was so calculated. He made that entire record contract happen. He went in with their management, nobody else in the band, to sign the record deal, and they were going in as the Yardbirds. I didn't know that they were actually going to sign the first record as the Yardbirds, and they had enough recognition and sort of support in performing that the label said, you know what, you can do your own thing. You can call yourself something else. And Keith Moon came up with the idea. I'd heard that whole story, but
Right.
Page walked in and he negotiated not only all the terms of the deal, but he said, you're not going to have anything to do with our record. In fact, you're not going to hear anything until we give it to you for release. We're going to pick the singles. We're going to tell you what the record's going to be called. We're going to pick what songs are on it, and we're going to give it to you as a completed project. The first record. I mean, that's unheard of, right? But it was fun. It was not only an escape, man, but it was really.
That's a very interesting story because when I got into this, it was all about the record company tells you everything, and
Right.
I was in a long period of time where you're trying to jump through fire hoops to do what the record company wants you to do. And I was also involved with a producer that was very controlling, and kind of telling us what the deal was. And also, I mean, I learned a lot from him, and he was very generous in some ways, but also extremely controlling. And there's a lot of things that I would have done, especially with the second record, that I would have changed. That I actually was trying to fight to remix the second record, for one thing, and do several things about that I would have changed. Not many people know this, but when the second record came out, Paul Taylor came to me and said, "Dude, we have to remix this record." And I was like, "I can't. I already tried. I can't do it. We're just tied into this." So it came out, and we were all kind of bummed out. It was the second record after the first record was really, happy.
Yeah, you earned the right to have some.
Yeah, but I was too okay, I don't have the power to do that. When I could have just said, "Sorry, call my lawyer," and I just didn't know it. I mean, I was too green. And so for Jimmy Page to be, like that in the 60s at that point, that's amazing. Good on him, man. I mean,
right.
I mean, they are.
Of course, but the first record didn't take off either. And then he did the exact same thing and delivered the second record. Zeppelin 2 comes out, Whole Lot of Love is there, and then the record takes off, right? So then they become the global phenomenon. But even to be able to go back after a sort of lackluster performance from the first record and say, I know we wrote all the terms, we're doing it again, this is what you get, and actually have it work out is pretty awesome. But
unreal. I mean, I feel bad. We're not answering any of these things. The comments have slowed down. They're all like,
there's a bunch of questions early on that some people had about seeing you on the solo tours, and people were asking about you doing solos.
One person keeps asking what's going on with my musical Get Jack. Nothing yet. We had a little action on it recently that hasn't worked out the way we wanted, but I'm still trying. And I do want to write another one, so more of that to come.
The next solo album, Jody Wisniewski also was asking.
Okay, so I have a lot of material for a new solo album. I just don't have the time to get to it. And I have easily one album's worth of material for a new solo album, and quite possibly 2 albums worth of material, depending upon how I want to approach it. And my solo albums are completely different. They're like the third leg of my Winger classical and then my solo thing. But it's morphed into it. There's no way that my solo record wouldn't have some classic elements to it. So I'm just trying to figure out how to get the time to do it and how I want to approach that album. But there will be another solo record. I just don't know when. So I have a lot of material.
Like a lot of artists now, right? They're doing single releases versus doing a full record. What about just doing a leak?
You know what? I mean, from all this kind of, what you should do, get on Spotify and put out one single, and got to do that, and post. I mean, I'm just so old school. Like, if I was 25 right now, I'd have 20 million followers. Okay,
right?
But now I'm like. If the one thing I do is write great music that someone likes, even if it's 10 people, I'll feel like I've done my gig, So, but
you just that was the poll quote right there. That was the KIP Winger poll quote for the podcast.
Well, it is. Yeah. I mean, singles, it's cool, but for me, the concept of an album is an important concept. So single. Oh, and by the way, here's the album. If it was leading somewhere, for me personally, if it was leading somewhere, then cool. But I thought exactly the opposite. I thought, wow, maybe I'll do a double album and release it only on vinyl, and then maybe put some songs out. Because the one good thing, you can totally police the internet. You can do takedowns. I do takedowns all the time with crap that I don't want on there. I mean, like if some unpublished stuff was out there. Anyway, I'm reading comments.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, Von Bentley asked do you sleep? Do you actually sleep pretty well?
That's funny. I was thinking of that commercial. Oh, I sleep. I can fall asleep like that. I mean,
Really?
yeah, yeah. I can
That's
sleep
okay.
on a plane. I can sleep pretty much anywhere.
Damn you, Kip
Thank
Winger.
God I can sleep.
It's been a curse, man, for me. That just like my mind
Man,
is just always going. Yeah, but a lot of the people that have chatted here, they've talked about how they appreciate your transition. You know, they like the old albums a lot. They've appreciated the solo records. You know, Winger was a big part of people in my generation. You know, growing up,
yeah,
when you were breaking, I was just a couple years younger than you know, but my bands were all at this time where all we wanted to do was make it, right? If we could just get that single and you can get out there and get onto MTV
yeah,
um, and you know, the allure of all things rock and roll. I mean, it was the tail end of like the Sunset Strip era, right? Where everything in the Sunset
yeah,
Strip was just so big and bombastic. And,
y-
um, but you don't get this real vulnerable, authentic conversation from a lot of people, you know, and you've actually, you know, I hope you're okay with me saying this. A lot of those people from that era haven't done the emotional maturation, right? They haven't done work on themselves to be able to grow and get past that. That was just a part of their life that they're going to maintain forever, and they never get beyond that, you know. And I,
yeah. It's easy to hide behind a facade of semi-successful records where you have fans and stuff like that. And I
yeah,
generally don't even like to refer to them as fans. It's more like
yeah,
friends of the music, kindred spirits that dig the stuff, you know. Um, and you know, we owe it to them for lifting us up, really. I mean, if without them, I mean, none of it, it's not even, you know, anything. But
brother.
um,
That humility, man. I'm telling you, Kip, like so many people in our business, they don't get that. It's awesome to hear you say that. I'm so with you that like I think you know, you seem to be very approachable to those people too. You know, when I saw you at the NAMM show and you're
yeah, I
milling
try
about
to
and just
be. I try to be. Every once in a while, I've heard like, "Man, I met you in 1991, and you were such a dick." And I'm like, "Man, I'm
yeah.
really sorry. Maybe I was late for something. I don't know."
I had to
Um,
pee.
yeah, well, we are old. Um,
Uh, it,
I'm look,
it- no, yeah, Jason LaPlante says if you could claim one song that isn't your own and you could play that live forever, what as yours, what one would that be? So somebody else's tune. If you're going to cover something,
uh, I've been thinking about doing a covers album because
yeah,
I've done a couple arrangements for stuff. Yeah, I have a list of cover. I've got a list. I got a list right here. Hold on a second.
nice. All right,
Wait.
here you go, Jason. Good question. While he's pulling it up, too, I'm going to remind people that if you go to kipwinger.com, you can actually get tickets to the forthcoming live recording, May 9th and 10th this year. The Nashville Symphony is doing his violin concerto #1. So make sure you go out and get those tickets.
Thank
Oh,
you.
in the chat, they've mentioned Paul Shortino. That yeah, we've had Paul on the show. It was quite an episode for sure.
um, listen, "Long and Winding Road," all-time favorite song. One
Yeah,
of my
nice.
all-time favorite songs. My covers album would be like "Drive" by the Cars, "Hello, It's Me" by Todd Rundgren. There's this one song by Sakamoto called "Forbidden Colors." Do you know "Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence"?
I
The
don't know
the
that one.
soundtrack to the David Bowie film "Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence." You'd know the melody. Ba da 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 dum. Da da
Oh,
da 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 dum. Bum, ba, da, 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 da. It's and there's David Sylvian sings this song called "Forbidden Colors." It's absolutely mind blowing. Um, Mate Kudasai by King Crimson.
nice.
Take My Picture by Filter.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderwall. I love that
Got some
song.
Oasis. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, Mean Mistreater by Grand Funk. Uh,
New York.
Guinevere by Quaresby Stills Nash. Tears of a Clown. Love that song. Human by I'm Only
Yeah,
Human.
the Human League.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Suffer in Silence. I can't remember who does that song. Suffer in Silence. The version I know. Wichita Lineman.
Have you actually performed covers of all these songs live?
No,
No.
I've been making this list like of songs that I would do if I was making a covers album, and something Peter Gabriel. I
Oh,
just did an arrangement of San Jacinto.
great tune.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm trying to make an arrangement for that. We'll see how it goes.
I went down the rabbit hole on YouTube of a guy that breaks down the multi-track recording of Peter Gabriel. He did Games Without Frontiers, and he took that song apart, every single element, and talked about the brilliance behind that. Like San Jacinto, that live Secret World live record that Peter Gabriel
Unreal.
did, the best live record on the planet, in my
Unreal.
opinion, man. I can't believe how good
Unreal.
that. And Paula Cole singing with him on San Jacinto was ridiculous, right?
I'll be right back. Plug my show.
Let's do it. Hey guys, so Kip, while he's gone and you came here late, I got to promote the show. Do me a favor, go to this link below, go to youtube.com/@accesskevin, and you can subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your friends, and become a member. Also, don't forget this amazing guitar shop in Portland, Oregon is 5-Star Guitars. They have everything, guitars, accessories. They do lessons online if you're not in the area. They do repairs if you are in the area. And if you go to the link below, go to 5starguitars.com and use the promo code of All Access Live. You get to save 15% off everything. There's no sales tax in Oregon, so you save so much money, and you're saving this show by helping them out. So don't forget, Kip Winger has an amazing live record coming out. Well, they're going to do a live recording of his Violin Concerto No. 1, live recording in Nashville, May 9th and 10th, 2025. The Nashville Symphony is going to release Violin Concerto No. 1. They're going to record it. It'll be available on all platforms. And so in the chat, I see here too, Glenn Campbell. Oh, you saw Glenn Campbell in his second to last show ever. So that's good that people, in the chat, Kip, somebody did clarify. I was asking about Mickey Thomas and that earlier Fooled Around and Fell in Love. It was the Elvin Bishop band. So that was his, yeah. And he, when we were on the show, I was talking to him about the same thing that you and I chatted about, that at some point, a lot of guys' voices, for whatever reason, man, they just go, and he still had the chops. And I said, just on a whim, man, would you indulge me? I said, would you mind? Just give me a little Fooled Around, Fell in Love. And spot on. He just acapella. He just went and threw it out, man. Can I con Kip Winger into throwing down?
Oh God, no! Are you kidding me? Getting my voice up and running is like a Model T. It'll take me 2 hours. I'll be like,
we're gonna get the Tom Waits version of all the Kip Winger songs. That I had forgot to ask you, man. We were talking about the earlier Winger days, and really, you mentioned that it was like pulling teeth, right, to get your own influence with the label. When 17 came out, right? And at that point, it was as if any other rock band was out there writing about hot, young relationships. Times are a little different now, right? Where, the culture is a little bit different. If 17 were to be released today, cancel, Kip might have been canceled a little sooner. But, and I'm not the only one to ask this, I'm sure, right? You've answered it before. But
people take it too seriously. I mean, come on! I was just following Paul McCartney while she was just 17.
Right?
Come on. It was just, in Colorado, I think 16 was the legal age, so I didn't even get the joke. It was whatever, man. People take it way too seriously. It's just a stupid pop song. I mean, Christ.
Right.
And for all you complainers, try to play the guitar riff. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, ridiculous, man!
It's difficult to play and sing that tune, man.
I don't know how you do it. And we were talking about Reb earlier too, man. I think at that point, that your band, just because you guys were all really good looking, you also got slammed. I mean, people talk about the Beavis and Butthead thing, and I know you mentioned being sort of the butt of those jokes, but the fact that you were good looking made it easier. But every guy in this band was so accomplished musically that it was a prog band that just happened to write great pop songs.
You know what? It really was. And like that was the problem with our band. We didn't really have proper management, and a real manager would have been able to steer us clear of all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, Having said that, I mean, I mean, I was in control enough to take responsibility for it. I ain't blaming anybody for it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I was too stupid to figure out, a lot of the stuff that, I should have known, because I'm like I was just a dumb kid from Colorado. I didn't grow up in New York area where you really are savvy about all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, I just want to rock. I'm
Yeah,
some music, that's it. So
that is it, man. Well, you've certainly come,
I know we'll be winding up soon, but if there's any musicians out there that have any like questions about anything, the one thing that I would say about my process is that I'm searching for a harmonic thing that I'm hearing that I haven't found yet. And this is part of the reason why I want to go further and further on this journey into acoustic music with really virtuosic players that can play this stuff that I'm hearing, and find these weird harmonic concepts that I hear that I can't actually totally do yet, And so a lot of it's like the way my process works is like I see these musical shapes. I'll just see them, like it'll just go bink and I'll go, oh wow, what does that sound like, So it's from a visual place to an audible sensation that I'm trying to find. How do I create that shape with the sound of this and the sound is how I want it to feel, okay? So I see this thing and I want it to feel like this. So how do I do that? Because, and this is, I don't know if anybody saw that interview I did with Steve Vai.
No.
I did a 3-part interview with Steve Vai where I was interviewing Steve.
Right on.
Because he's a very literate composer, and we were talking a lot. It's 3 parts. It's a long interview. It's cool. It's on my YouTube channel, which I don't pay enough attention to, but it's there. And we were both talking about how when we were young, we were not attracted to composers, composers before 1900 because the harmony was not complex enough for what we were trying to search for. And this is why he was so drawn to Frank Zappa. And that's why when I studied ballet early, when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, I was, in a company and did all this stuff. And I danced to a lot of this very complex music. That's where I was hearing these sounds going, wow, who wrote that? And how did they do that? And I can't believe somebody actually did that. And now it's gone beyond me studying all these people because I know a lot of music. Part of the reason why when you said Nijinsky didn't sound like somebody's first record, it's because I've done a lot of listening, and a lot of studying of the stuff, and a lot of writing exercises that kind of went nowhere. And then when I finally got to this thing, it was worthy of being published. But I've gone beyond the place where I'm trying to imitate any of these composers. I'm trying to find this thing. Like I already know what Ravel does. I mean, I can't do it, but I know what he's doing, and I can look at what Stravinsky does, and you can see what they're doing. You can't. I'm not saying I'll ever be as good as them. Okay, so let's just get that one right off the table. But what I'm trying to do is find this sound. So this is why, and this is how I approach it. Like Rick Beato is a good example of it. He's very well knowledgeable on music theory and stuff, and he gives great examples of all this kind of stuff. And he's very knowledgeable in his way to teach theory and talk about theory and all that stuff. But that's not how I work. Like I know all that stuff, but I don't think of that stuff when I'm constructing music. It comes to me in shapes and sounds. And I have completely thrown out key signatures, diatonicism, all of that stuff. I don't deal with any of it. I just kind of fumble through my way to find these sounds and piece them together. And then the glue is that I was a songwriter, so my melodies stick in your brain, and then I'll add all this weird kind of harmonic stuff to them, And that's
You
kind of,
find, like,
go
do you
ahead.
just get jumbles of dissonance though that you have to kind of, like, piece apart? Because I mean, something that if you talk about these shapes and you're blocking those things together without the concept of theory behind it, it seems like there'd be a lot of harmonic dissonance in
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. And there's a lot in my music, more than you would realize, because I've learned how to make dissonance beautiful. And see, the thing is that life is dissonance made beautiful. You know, this is the thing. It's a very complex. Um, being a human being is a very complex thing to experience. You know,
Yeah.
so I find that like simple harmony and simple theory, music theory ways, they don't apply to the human condition. You know, you can go whatever, and you can even give it some weird intervals and stuff like that, but it's never going to actually explain what it means to be a human being. And that's really where I'm coming from with what I'm writing. That's exactly the zone in which I kind of garden my stuff.
You know what, man? To me, coming from that angle, I would feel like it has to be so fulfilling. Whatever you're putting out is so authentic. If you really do come from that angle, nothing's contrived and you're not really writing with a concept of trying to sell, and you talk about the human condition and how everything you put down is truly from the heart. That's not the cerebral part, man. This is just your heart spilling out. There have been places, you and I talked offline about just how you shared an opinion about just where you were at in the world, and you said what we need is to focus and share decency and like kindness, and doing what's right, and
Yeah.
just and Patty, I I've done a lot of travel as well. The last couple of years,
Yeah.
man, I fell in love with some places that, my son lives in Thailand now, and I
Yeah.
had visited Thailand before. I love the people there. I love the decency, man, and just the kindness that I found. And a lot of, when you're in Asia, a lot of that happens. And I feel like I want so badly for there to be a revolution that way,
Yeah.
I love that you are articulate about that, man. I mean, that's it sounds like that's what you're doing with your music.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do with my music. I mean, the thing that when you think about being a human, you have an intellect and then you have an emotional body, and the only thing that can balance them is your heart. You
Yeah.
know, you have to know what's right in your heart to come forth with any of this stuff. It's interesting because I'm currently doing this. The Grammy the Recording Academy that does the Grammys has this thing called peer something, like peer groups, where they asked if I wanted to sign up to just meet two other random composers and have some Skype sessions just because. And I never really do stuff like that. And I thought, you know what, why not? Let's do it. Boom. So I did it, and I got in, and I got joined up with two other composers, and it's been really fascinating. We've only spoken like 3 times on Skype, but one of the people is from Japan, and I started the conversations with going, why are we still doing this? Because sometimes I'll be like, man, why am I doing this? Because it's really, art is fighting against a tsunami,
Right.
and and why are we doing anything? And the woman in there was telling me, in Japan, there's, and I was saying, why we got down to the point where we were saying, why does anybody do anything, kind of thing. But she was saying, well, in Japan, the reason that we do things now, for anybody who's Japanese, I mean, I could have totally gotten this wrong. And so disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But my interpretation of what she said was, even if you're a service person, like a waiter or a doorman or one of the geisha women that dresses up in the thing, or a musician or whatever, you work for perfection to grow your spirit. And I just was like,
Mm.
And the perfection in what they're trying to do comes because they're trying to grow their own spirit. It could be, I'm going to open this door for you, so perfectly beautiful that, and that's where they're coming from. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, we need more of this in the world.
Yeah.
Because it comes with such a respect towards other humans. You're trying to grow your spirit, and it works off everybody in tandem, and you create this whole other thing. And I've been to Japan many times, and I've seen this exact thing firsthand. You know, even in the bow, it's like it's a whole respect and kindness thing that really is amazing.
We could learn a lot. We could learn a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
This, there have been so many people here that have been asking a lot of amazing questions, but I would hope that they're really listening to what you have to say, man, because um, there's a real sincerity, to delivering like a really positive message. And I think a lot of people need it. I certainly did, man. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for this, dude.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you, man. It's the synergy between us. That's
Yeah.
where it comes from. I like
That's
this
it.
one comment. Hush yourself, Skip.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's
yeah, Skip Stone is not only an amazing supporter of the show and a good friend, but he is an encyclopedia of music knowledge, right? So
Oh,
he's one of those
wow.
guys.
Cool.
He lived in Matsumoto for 2 months. See, the guy, he has lived all, he's seen all, he knows all. He's not. I'm not kidding you when I tell you that. Let me just tell you, because you've traveled a lot. We did a gig in the Philippines last year, right?
Mhm.
So I'm in the Philippines. I don't post where I'm at. I post a picture from my hotel room about 39 floors up saying, "Good morning, Manila." He texts me and says, "Hey man, are you at the blank blank hotel?" And I said, yeah. How do you know this? And he goes, "Oh, well, my brother-in-law is the head of security there, man. If you're going to be there for a couple of days, I'm going to send food up." And
Oh,
I'm not kidding you. His brother and wife bring up this massive tray full of like 20 pounds of pancit and noodles and dessert. It was the kindest thing ever. So you talk about spreading joy and kindness, and
yeah.
yeah, man, I think I wish. Here's one thing that I wish, Kip. I wish that everybody had the opportunity to travel as much as we've been fortunate enough to do.
Absolutely. It
'Cause
puts
I think
everything in perspective.
it
It's
absolutely
it's
does. I think,
it takes it takes so much fear of the unknown away. It's
yeah,
like this is where all
and
this
then
prejudice comes from. It's like, just go travel the world for a while and tell
yeah,
me what you think after that.
you shouldn't be able to make decisions unless you've done so. I think that's the
It's
thing.
it's so important to just be open to what. And listen, here's the thing. I always quote this astronomer, and I can't remember his name, but he's like, there's 400 billion stars in the Milky Way, and the Milky Way is way smaller than Andromeda that's next to us. And in the known universe that the astronomers can actually see and identify, there's 2 trillion solar
Galaxies.
systems.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's 2 trillion galaxies. I mean, come on, man.
yeah.
That's what's
We're not.
up.
That's it, man. We are a small blip, but I've said this a bunch of times. Like my favorite quote. And you're wonderful about your quotes. It's been viral forever, man. But Jim Carrey, right, had done this commencement speech to his marketing students in Stanford, and these kids are going out and they're learning about how to make money, and it's all about money and acquisitions, right? And he said, "The effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is." And to me, that is legacy. That's what we can do, man. Being able to affect people in a positive way. That's all we really have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely, man.
I try to hold that true. And that's kind of that I try to find people that I resonate with that resonate that way. You've been tremendous in this way, man. I'm so grateful that you spent this
Oh,
much
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
people are asking, and maybe we'll wrap with this, and they're asking what you want to say to fans. But there was a great question that somebody asked here about who you would want to interview. So who maybe are you compelled to want to ask other, because I love the idea that you did a 3-part with Steve Vai, who's a visionary, probably one of the most incredible guitarists on the planet, and he's so unique and artistic. But who would you feel like is someone that if you could sit down and you've got one person to spend the afternoon with to interview, who might that be?
That's a difficult question. I really, that's really, living or
Yeah.
living, man, that's really tough.
Well, we can go then the other way. And in all time, in all history, who would that be?
That's really tough too. That's really interesting question. I mean, I don't know, Buddha. I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Somebody really heavy like that.
I don't know if I could handle that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would just be so heavy. Listen, I'm a huge fan of this dude, Arthur Honegger. I probably want to talk to him. Ravel, those kind of guys. But just on the grand scheme of something, that could just cast some pearls of wisdom. I mean, Buddha.
Yeah, that would be game over, right? I mean, that was just like all he'd have to do is one sentence and be done. But
Totally.
Let me just remind people.
It's not Carl Sagan, by the way. He's an English dude. He's a younger guy. I can't remember his name. I'm going to find it. Hold on.
While you're looking it up too, I mean, as far as astronomers go, I'm a massive Neil deGrasse Tyson fan. I love his perspective on not only the universe, but current events. I don't know if you end up watching any of his socials, but I think you would enjoy them.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't even see the guy's. There's no. Neil deGrasse is amazing.
Yeah.
But where's this other guy? English. Let me put English in here.
Brian Cox?
Yes, Brian Cox.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Kristen Porter.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. But Vince Horgan, Bill Nye, of course, man, Bill Nye is a wonderful, incredible scientist. And my son Caleb was a big Bill Nye fan and went to go see him at a lecture a couple years ago. And it was so informative and inspiring and positive. It was really nice to hear from how nice is that to have educated scientists that actually promote, positivity with science. Imagine that, right?
You know what? When you're talking about hobbies, I mean, I'm really into this whole thing. I mean, I'd like to get further into it, but how much time do you have? Like when I'm thinking, okay, I'd really like to do this or I'd really like to do that. I'm thinking, okay, that's going to take this many hours, and I'm going to have to, I'm really good at knowing exactly how many hours it's going to take me to do anything. So it's like, okay, I want to learn a foreign language. Well, that's going to take me this much time that I don't have, so I'm going to work on. It's I just wish it's great to be so filled with life at this age. I just want to live forever. Maybe when we're 90, they'll have a pill to make us 40 again. Who knows? Because that seems to be the way it's going. Or transfer our mind into a robot.
That is what they're saying. That Neuralink, right? That's what they're saying. But I think as I get a little older, I think it's all about your attitude and outlook, so you only you're only as old as you act, as long as you've got some maturation, so you're not a meathead, but
I'm just humbled by those before me, so it's really, there's so much greatness out there to be kind of blown away by. I mean, that's kind of, somebody's asking biggest inspiration. That's it, I'm inspired by so many musicians that are so much bigger than I'll ever be. It's always something to keep striving for, so it's a great kind of lineage to be in. Anyway,
do you, I was going to ask you, this is a long time ago, man, but do you remember what that letter was that you wrote your dad? the essay?
Yeah, I was basically, no, not the whole, not verbatim, but I mean, I was just
Yeah.
basically I was making the case that for me in this case, traditional school was getting in the way of my education. My education needed to be in, doing gigs, touring, performing, all this kind of stuff that's not offered in the type of education I'm being, that's being kind of forced
Mm-hmm.
on me. And I wasn't a good student. I don't work well in classrooms or any of that stuff. I'm very autodidactic, and I just want
Yeah.
to figure it out. And there's a lot
Of
of
course.
people like me.
Yep.
I'm not an anomaly, and so I just made the case. I mean, listen, I went out and we tried stuff, and I ended up going back to get a GED, and then I even went to University of Denver for a while, and I'm actually thinking about going back to school myself, because I love learning. And by the way, I've taken umpteen classes on Berkeley Online. They have great music classes on there for
Yeah.
certain things, So I still take stuff, and I still study with my composition teachers and stuff like that. So education will always be in my protocol.
Well, I mean, it doesn't
Always.
have to be the certificate right on the wall, man. It's about the sort of educational component and development, which is, yeah.
Totally,
Oh,
totally, totally,
yeah,
totally. Charles is talking about Ray
yeah,
Kurzweil. He's
singularity,
amazing.
absolutely.
Totally
Mind and machine melding, right?
Yeah,
That's coming for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Man, you know what?
totally.
I get to
Anyway,
run
well,
because I've got a rehearsal with a guy who said Rob Dacre is a producer and engineer, and he apparently supplied you with some drum samples some while back, I guess. So, uh, yeah, he said, yeah, make sure you ask Kip about that. I don't know the details of it, but I'm going to go in the studio in a minute and go do.
well, tell him I said hi. I remember who he is. Yeah, tell him I said hi. And by the way, I'm going to go watch your interview with Midge Ure. Huge
Oh man,
Ultravox fan. The album Vienna, that changed my life. I mean, I was
you
totally
know what?
into
I
that.
knew that you mentioned being an Ultravox fan. Two things. I am as well. We did a show with him in Belgium this last year, one of those big tent festivals, right? And I watched him amass this army of followers. It was incredible. When he came out and did Vienna and he's singing, he stopped singing. There are probably at least 10,000 people at full volume. And they were all in-ears on stage. So there were no amplifiers on stage at all. Everything was direct, right? So drums dropped out and the entire audience singing. It was so incredible, man. Tears in my eyes, all the hair on my arm stood up. And I told him afterwards, and when I was trying to talk to him, I was trying not to like tear up, but it was so powerful. It
Fan,
was unbelievable. And he was so
yeah.
humble, man. And what a sweet man. And he, like he recognizes people's value, and it's not about him, right? It's about all this before. So so the interview that we did as we were doing, it was backstage at a venue here in Portland, and the Wi-Fi wasn't super solid, so it's all audio on that recording. But I'll make sure that you've got access to it because it's for members only. If you guys want to become a member and you want to hear about this one,
Uh,
but
oh,
but
yeah, right.
but
I was thinking, yeah,
I'll get
right.
you that
You
one.
said
And
that in the beginning.
I told
Yeah.
Midge, I said the next one we do, it's got to be in person again, man, too, because that to be able to share what he did with people, and I can sit here and talk about it, but until people get to see that thing live, if people don't know how incredible this guy is, and they don't know Ultravox, go back and watch Live Aid because that's all you need to know, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's
Yeah,
just one of those guys. I mean, he
icon.
is
Yeah,
it. I
in the
mean,
Mount
it's
Rushmore
unbelievable.
of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
era for sure. Uh,
yeah. I dedicate this
There we
chat to
go. Right
Midget.
on. And all of you guys in this chat, man, you've been phenomenal. You've been so engaged, and I love seeing it. And Kip, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Dude, you were everything I needed today, man. This was beautiful.
Oh,
This was a
nice.
really
Thank
beautiful
you.
hang. We'll do it
Thank
again
you,
next
man.
time I'm in Nashville or
Cool.
you're out this way, okay? Do you have any plans with is Winger coming out
Yeah,
to
cool.
Portland or the Northwest?
Not at this point. We're doing a bunch
Yeah.
of
I'm
international stuff. So
I may
if
have to
we
go
do, I'll let you
overseas
know.
to see you,
Yeah.
but I've been
That'd
known
be
to do it,
rad.
man. I fly to Canada to go see Big Rec.
Yeah.
Are you hip to them? Oh, buddy.
No.
All right, we'll chat offline about this. Yeah.
Big Rec?
Rick, your
I
buddy
gotta
Rick
check it out.
Beato is a big fan of Ian Thornley, the singer for Big Rec. Phenomenal
Oh,
writer,
cool.
and so we'll chat about that. My followers on this show, they all know I
Yeah.
rave about this band too much, man. But guys,
Cool.
do me a favor.
Cool,
Two
cool.
things. Go to kipwinger.com. Make sure you buy tickets for the forthcoming March 9th and 10th, or May 9th and 10th recording of the Violin Concerto No. 1 that Kip has written for the Nashville Symphony. And then number 2, go to the link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. Subscribe to this channel. Share it. Like it. And go out and see Kip Winger before you can no longer do so. Be good humans. That's the key, right? All right,
There you
everyone.
go,
Take
there you
care.
go.
Have a beautiful